Kubernetes for humans.
Hello, everyone. Happy to have everyone back. My name is TietoEVRY, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of Commodore. With me today in the Kubernetes for Humans podcast, we have Hans from NAV, platform engineer. Hans, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. So excited to be here, and thanks for having me on. So as you said, I'm Hans from the Norwegian government, or NAV. We are the Labor and Welfare Administration. So we hand out money, basically. It's social services in Norway. We actually hand out 1/3 of the Norwegian annual budget. So it's a quite a large operations. The single largest government agency in Norway. And we've been on our cloud journey for the past, or cloud native journey for the past 8 years, actually. So quite a long way already, but we are still sort of trying to be even better. And so super excited to be here.
I'm super happy to have you. So before talking about the Norwegian government and everything, just share a bit about yourself. How did you start developing, going into infra? What's your journey? Where, what, why? And then we'll go over the company as well.
Yeah, I love that segue there. So I have a long history of working with open source. So I've started back at high school. I created that was just before Facebook. I started sort of a community for my class friends, and it didn't take off. Then Facebook came and everyone left my platform.
Like I said, I heard about going into development.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I do have a claim to fame that I then, in a desperate attempt to get them back, I made a copy of the Facebook theme, and I actually got a letter on paper that was a cease and desist, and said, "Stop copying us, or we'll sue you." So I didn't laugh that much back then. I was a little bit scared. But, now it's all fun and jokes. So from there, I studied at the Norwegian Technical University, studied computer science. Alongside my studies, I've always been hiking. I'm sort of grown up in the mountains, in the Norwegian mountains, hiking and doing all crazy stuff. So sort of we have this trekking association that sort of are responsible for the trails and for a lot of the cabins. They have 500 open cabins that you can just go to and just go there, and there are food and everything, and you just pay at the cabin. So I was able to combine sort of my passion for technology and hiking and trekking, and I actually worked for them as a consultant. And after my studies, I got hired onto a project there to sort of create a hiking portal for all of Norway. So together with the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation. So they had some of the content, editorial content, and we were a subject matter expert, and I was on the and we did I was half of the IT department, so we just had to get the job done, and sort of you had to leverage test automation, you had to leverage deployment automation. We didn't really call it DevOps back then, but it was basically what we did to just sort of, you couldn't do things manually over and over again because you had to use what little time you had to actually do new stuff. So we got onto containers very, very early on. And sort of at one point, I sort of had rewritten the same service 3 or 4 times and sort of realized that sort of maybe that is not sort of the best sort of time spent for this small volunteer-based organization to sort of do it. It's sort of you come to a level where you can't really justify taking on the newer and newer technology, and that might be better suited for much larger organizations. So from then on, I actually went a little bit in polar opposite. So that was a really small organization. I had one colleague, technical colleague, really. And I went down to sort of the largest consultancy agency in Norway, TietoEVRY, or TietoEVRY as they are called today, and really did just what I did back at the Trekking Association. Really sort of were sort of the champion for DevOps for getting developers and operators in the same room. At that time, sort of Kubernetes was just really out, and I took sort of a personal bet that I believe this is going to be huge. Let's test it out. Let's see what cool things we can do. And one of the organizations I got to work with was another government agency. Back then as a consultant, the Directorate of Fisheries, actually, one of the very few governments that are headquarters on the west coast of Norway in Bergen, where I live. So I actually got there. They didn't really know that I was coming. I don't know the backstory of the agreement or how I ended up there, actually. But basically, sort of they said that, oh, we are too busy putting out fires. So if you don't, just don't create more fires, and we'll leave you alone, and you can sort of just do something that you feel are useful. And because they didn't really know what I was doing there, what I should be doing, and they were too busy with it else. So I actually then started sort of found some people within the organization that was sort of, okay, let's try to do something new here. Let's try to do it better. Found some internal employees, a few consultants with some newer applications, and then sort of, okay, let's create a really, really minimal viable platform here, just for these two sort of applications, and just take it from there. Let's get them out to production and then take it from there. Don't sort of gold plate everything to sort of all the edge cases within the world and etc. And it didn't really take that long time before we really got traction, and this all started rolling and became bigger, and more applications, and really by their own will and drive, they wanted onto the platform, and it sort of became the platform for Directorate. And that was sort of where I became acquainted with the welfare administration. They really were doing the same thing as I did, just on a huge scale, much larger scale than I. And we sort of compared notes. I at least took a lot of inspiration from them and used them to sort of make my platforms better. And that was really my one of my goals, was to sort of be on that team at some point. But they never hired consultants. That team, they seemed that this was really, really core to our business. And at that point, they had a really, really solid team already. So after the pandemic, they actually found out that sort of working remotely, this team here, working remotely really, really fits us. A few of them had moved outside the city center and sort of wasn't really keen on spending commuting to the office. And then they said, oh, this is working. Let's start hiring for remote people as well. And that's how I ended up in NAV, really, by sort of being one of the first remote employees there. And we're a fully remote team at this point. And almost 30 people working on our application platform and our data platform, which is sort of very closely coupled in that sense that they are sharing the same sort of platform as a service construct, where we don't take responsibility of anything that goes into the platform. We take responsibility of the platform and give it as a service to our.
Wow, it's like a super interesting story, but I must ask around like let's go back a bit, like before like your last team, right? How you describe it sounds amazing. Like what you say is basically, I was there, no one really told me what to do. I found like a couple of people, I built the platform, and other people saw it was so good that they jumped right in, which is like a great story. I like it. But usually, and I wonder like if it was the case, and maybe because you guys are Norwegian, then it's not the case. Like there's a lot of, ideology around developers. Developers don't like platform. The devils do like platform. This team don't like it. You don't understand us. You don't understand our use cases and so on. And usually, like at least that's what we see. There's a lot of friction when you try to onboard new teams into the platform. And I'm happy from what you are saying, but I'll be happy to hear, was it really like such a smooth sailing when like people just wanted to join, or is there like more politics than a game? Maybe because you guys are Norwegian, like there's no power. Sure. I didn't talk with enough like Norwegian a company. So I wonder if it's like a cultural thing or yeah, your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely sort of not smooth sailing all the way. So, but for the most part, yes, I didn't really encounter some sort of major blockers. For the most sense, it was sort of, there were some holdouts through the organization, no doubts, but sort of we left them alone. We didn't really try to force them. We said that, well, if you're happy where you are today, well, I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to sort of to ruin your day or anything. And gradually, sort of, they saw that their peers, because they really listened to their other colleagues within the directorate. That's sort of the main takeaway there. That to convince them is really hard. You have to convince their peers, and then that will convince them eventually. So we just took out our time. We didn't really, and sort of course, we were a little bit on our toes all the way until we sort of hit sort of a critical mass. We knew that this won't be shut down. We didn't know that we were sort of like end up being the more or less the only platform within the directorate, but at least we knew that we had such a traction at that point that they wouldn't really just take all of that away, because they saw that at least the applications and the teams that were already on the platform, they got a lot of benefits from being there. And they told their sort of colleagues, and sort of it's spread mostly via the one person to the next, and they saw that, oh, but they are having a great time here. They don't deal with all of these things that I have to deal with. Maybe I should sort of, because learn a little bit more and do that initial investment. Of course, we try to keep the bar as low as possible to get into the platform, of course, but you had to containerize, and you had to learn sort of the DSL to sort of describe your application. We didn't sort of go. We didn't we didn't make them learn Kubernetes. They had sort of a DSL on top of that. At least once it sort of matured in the very early, we had sort of vanilla Kubernetes manifest in different repositories, and that didn't scale.
So you said something that I think it's quite a common pattern in a lot of companies. I also did it, right? Like, I don't know, like it is common. And DSL, right? Like, let's say I want to create something. I want everyone to be able to use it, right? Like, I want the developer that I don't really know will easily use the DSL to deploy his application, right? So I create something super simple. I don't know, give me the path to the Docker file, and maybe say if you need some port or something like that, and blah, 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 magic, right? And you have your service. My question, I don't know, Jenkins, how did you deploy, just out of curiosity?
So at that point, we used Helm and Jenkins.
Yeah, Helm and Jenkins. That's like, yeah.
It worked.
It worked. It works exceptionally well, and you can achieve a really cheap, like, getting started, like with a super simple DSL. Everyone has the same pipeline. You force them, but now the thing with DSL, and I'll be really happy to hear what you think here. DSL works really well in terms of I want to deploy my application. Though I'm a developer, I want to deploy my application. A DSL will provide a really great experience for that. I really believe that. But now, let's say, sometimes the application doesn't work as expected. And then the developer doesn't really know that you did all of those magic behind the scenes, right? Your DSL is mapped to like dozens of different Kubernetes objects, PVC, service, load balancer, stateful, whatever. How do you, like, once an issue or an error occur for this developer, what happens now? Like, what happens once this DSL is working as expected, but the application itself is crashing or not working as expected?
Yeah, excellent point. And we deal with that all. Well, now, so I don't have sort of a silver bullet there, really. What we try to advocate for is make the applications less complex. So we tend to sort of advocate for having simple architecture, simple services, and not overcomplicate, because you can really shoot yourself in the foot if you turn on all of the knobs and use all of the features. It typically sort of a sign that maybe you don't know what you're doing. Maybe this one application is doing a little bit too much, to be honest, if you need all the configurations that we can provide. But yeah, it is a challenge, and we don't have sort of a ready-made solution to that. We are working on sort of more of a developer portal or console that will sort of do some translations, sort of not too common errors, and I'm saying that this is what they can most likely be caused. So we do have a sort of a rap sheet with different errors that are likely to occur in Kubernetes, and I'm sort of trying to translate that over to what do I need to do, what's the order of debugging I need to do in order to check my application. But yes, we haven't really tried to obfuscate away Kubernetes. They still have access to Kubernetes. They can still sort of look behind the covers there, and they can actually interact with Kubernetes directly in their namespaces. So they are not tied on, because that's another part to the DSL story that, at that point, I'm really limited. It works really well for sort of 80%, maybe 90%. Yes. Then there are always these edge cases there. And in those cases, they are allowed to actually use Kubernetes under the hood. They then, we still sort of apply the same policies. That's what's really nice with sort of validating and mutating webhooks in Kubernetes. But they are a little bit outside of what we are supporting or what we can support. We will do, of course, we are saying that you get the gold level support if you stay within our DSL and use, today we use an operator for our applications.
Operator for the application. Okay, so let's talk a bit, if you don't mind, about, I think when it comes to the responsibilities between platforms and SRE and developers, like the easiest question is always alerts. Like who wakes up in the middle of the night, right? Like, and you guys are processing a lot of money. So I guess someone sometimes, right? Like, I guess someone wakes up. So who wakes up like in the middle of the night? How is the alert configured? How is the monitoring configured? Like, walk me through. I'm a new developer, right? On the team. Like, what is expected of me? Maybe I'm like a senior. Never mind. Yeah, but the expectation.
Yeah, so most of our application, we do have sort of we still have legacy applications, and those applications, they have their own sort of, they have the traditional devs, and they hand it over to the operations. But we have a large majority now that's sort of in the new realm where it's undefined at best. It's best effort from the application team side, and we as a platform team only take responsibility for the platform. So I'm not paged if any of the application, if a single application is down. I'm paged if all of them are down or platform components. But it's also worth taking note here that most of our operations goes within sort of normal operating hours. Yes, we do process a lot of money, but we don't pay out in the middle of the night. There might be some batch operations, yes, that do that. But for the most part, it's sort of during normal daylight hours, and it's still not life and death. If you cannot check, you get back and you check later. It's not sort of Black Friday where you really need to stay up because otherwise they would aren't really. It's not to say that you have crappy experience. We just say that, well, it's really expensive to have sort of this amount of uptime for everything. So we sort of, well, if we really need a good uptime on the platform itself, and then we need a solid application architecture in order to sort of alleviate the lack of sort of on-call operation for all of the applications, because we have 2,000 applications at this time, or services. It's simply too expensive to have on-call for all of them. Some of them might have. So that's sort of, there exists this slider here where some services, some applications are more important than other. But then either the application team needs to sort of figure that or do operations themselves, or they need to sort of have a agreement with an ops team that sort of take the responsibilities when they are not during their normal working hours. But to sort of sum it up, we have rarely there are occurrences that doesn't really resolve itself. So there are sort of these events where something outside of our control is going down, and then really it's nothing. It's very little that we can actually do. We need to wait out for that external dependency to get up, and then we see that the eventual consistency within Kubernetes really handles very well. It sort of things are crashing, yes, but once it starts sort of the health check is green, then it comes up, and all its sort of downstream dependencies they will come up. So very rarely that we need to go in and have a manual intervention in these kinds of situations. So I really can't, from the top of my head, sort of see or mention a single sort of when we had a very large outage or something that we really needed someone else on the scene there. As I said, sort of we on the platform side we have 24/7 operations because it's at this point it's really critical that the platform itself stays up.
Oh, it's like it sounds good. It's one of the best best setups I heard for a lot of time. I think you are like the best one in the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not trying to take credit here, and it's so many people that sort of deserve a lot of credit. And going back to the application architecture as well, so we have an event-driven architecture. We use Kafka for all of our services more or less. So things are queued up, which means that once you sort of fail, well, the data is there. It just halts, it just queues up whatever needs to be queued there. And then once things get back online and gets up again, it starts chugging along and working on that queue there. So really, again, it comes really back to that application architecture. And we really emphasize that the platform will only sort of help you this much. You really need that architecture as well in order to get the full advantage on this here. So we haven't really done the lift and shift. We haven't said that, just take your existing application and deploy it here. We actually discourage people from doing it and say that you will have a worse time. If you just take your existing application as it is, as a huge monolith, it will behave much poorly on this platform. Yeah. And you really need to take your time and re-architecture and get it up before you move it over. And so the goal here has never been to sort of just get everything over as quick as possible. No, we want to make sure that what's in there is of a sufficient quality in order to sort of take advantage of this type. And which means that it takes time. But we believe that doing it this way here serves us better in the long term and gives us much less friction along the way.
No, it sounds, it sounds that you are performing in like a higher speed or like standard than most other companies in the private sector that I talk with. So I think it's quite like admirable that you achieve such good standards, really. And I think it's also has to do with the domain, right? Like itself, like you don't need to wake up in the middle of the night, like you said, I was there like in the fintech on the Black Friday days, and like it's a thing, right? Like everyone is crazy, the internet is crazy, and you need to make sure that everything works as expected. And like even a few seconds of delay is problematic. But absolutely, it's good for you. So maybe you guys have your own project, right? Maybe you can share a bit about it and nice.io and .io. So maybe share a bit about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really, as sort of the largest Norwegian government agency, we really believe that since we have this amount of knowledge and expertise, it's more or less our duty to actually give back, not of course to the community as well, but to the rest of the government and to the rest of Norway. So we do have a sort of policy that where everything we make is open by default. It's open source by default. We open our repos as long as sort of it's not doesn't contain any sensitive information, and we really strive towards not having our repos containing sensitive data. So our platform is called Nice, and it's a Kubernetes platform as many other, and we have this application operator, the Nicerate sort of part of the platform. So that provides the DSL for our developers. So they actually create sort of a custom resource definition that sort of describes the application, and our operator will then translate that into all of the Kubernetes objects. And that gives us a very, very flexible model where we can update the operator and it will sort of provision newer version or different versions. We actually were able to migrate from Istio over to Linkerd without having to touch more or less a single application. We just did all of that migration from the so the developers didn't really notice or didn't really care if it was the one or the other there. So that's where we see that this providing a DSL really gives a lot of benefit. Of course, there's an initial sort of investment in order to make this, and sort of the learning skills and to sort of be able to make operator is a little bit steep. But once you get there, it has been very, very rewarding, and we can see we can move quite fast with that type of structure, really.
No, it's like really impressive. So are a lot of other agencies or like companies are using this platform?
So actually we it's been open source, so most people can use it if they chose to. But for the past year, we have had a trial where we have onboarded other agencies onto our platform, so they have gotten their complete instance. So it's not sort of a multi-tenant purpose. It's spun up for each organization very, very independently, and where we have managed the platform for them. So it's generally it's smaller government organizations that really can't afford to have a fully fledged platform team and can sort of piggyback on the work that we are already doing. So it's not a goal to sort of rule them all in any sense. It's sort of those who share our vision, how we believe that software development should be done, having sort of autonomous development teams that have a lot of take responsibilities of their own application. They might be a good fit. If you really, really believe that you should, the developers should only be doing development and then you should hand it over to our operators, that this wouldn't really fit you at all. And we don't aim onboarding as well, onboarding to the platform. It's currently in sort of a pilot phase, and we'll see where we get from there. It's sort of a brand new way of thinking on sharing between government organizations. So we are still sort of pending our lawyers to say if this is within what we actually are allowed to do. There are some rules the government we have to apply to. So we really need to know that if we can actually do this. But currently it's on pilot, so then it's okay. And that's really, really interesting way to look at it. And another thing that we have been sort of doing is that we have a forum where we gather most of these public associations and share our experience making these types of platform for our developers. And we have almost 50 organizations today and 1,000 members, and we have sort of quarterly meetings where we sort of share where are we going and how far we come and have we had any challenges, etc. And that's been really, really interesting to see that so many of these organizations and parts of the government is moving in more or less the same direction, with some sort of differences with regards to technology. But really moving in that direction. They are believing that we should have a platform. It might use Kubernetes, it might use something else, but it should be self-service, and developers should be able to be responsible for their own applications and sort of get the paved road experience.
I think it's like very rare and interesting to see so many people going into the same direction. I don't know, especially in the government, but I'm not sure. I'm telling you, it's because you guys are Norwegian. Like it's the first time I'm hearing all of this, but I'm happy. It sounds cool. So we don't have a lot of time. I'll be happy if you can predict the future for me, Hans. So where do you think the industry is going, or like what are the interesting trends that you are seeing that are going to be like upcoming in the upcoming years, basically?
Yeah, some interesting trends. I have my daughter here, and I think she's trying to build a fort or something in my office.
How old is she?
She's 2 years. So it's a really fun age. And then the boys, I don't know where they are.
I don't know where.
Everyone. Yeah, so predicting the future, always fun, always hard. I really believe that we are not going back from sort of platform engineering and sort of having developers that gets a lot of freedom and then sort of are responsible for their own applications. Really believe that's the future. We do have some sort of strategic bets or sort of looking into different technologies that is sort of open telemetry for observability, and really believe that that's the way forward, the standard for telemetry data. Looking at WebAssembly, maybe it's sort of there's something there for more serverless functions or applications. There are work going on sort of with serverless and WebAssembly within Kubernetes. I really believe that you this, and this isn't my saying, but sort of you enter Kubernetes, you come for the containers, but you stay for the API. So really sort of it's not really containers, it's the AI and the integrations there. If it's containers, is it sort of micro virtual machines, WebAssembly workers? I don't really care much. I care about the API and sort of the integration and the standardization of it. And how my workload is actually running isn't that interesting at all. So it will definitely be very interesting to see. But we do believe that we have a lot of not only, so we're quite sort of cost saving by moving from premise to cloud. But we do know that if we can start turning things more off, turning off our development environments when they are not used, turn off all of our services when they are not used, that can save us money, but also sort of save on environmental cost as well. There is this cost that's sort of becoming more and more.
Well, FreeNops, just around the CO2 consumption of the machine. Yeah. It is becoming like a bigger trend. I think like people want to save money, most people. So they can buy like, then they will also like save the CO2. But no, it was like, for me, it was like a real pleasure, Hans, having you. It was one of the most interesting and different talks I had. I think, I want to say even ever, because I think the mentality and like at least how you picture it sounds like a really good and healthy system to work. And I didn't saw a lot of those. I'm not sure if I'm not in the right place in Norwegian, but I think it's like super cool what you guys achieved. So yeah, thanks.
That's really great to hear. Yeah, thanks for having here, and I hope I can get back on at some later point and really tell more.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Kubernetes for humans.